The blue glow of computer screens illuminated Dr. Elena Rice's face as she squinted at her simulation results. 3:17 a.m., and something still wasn't adding up in her dimensional boundary equations. The university's ancient computing cluster had finally finished processing her latest model, but the numbers remained stubbornly inconsistent. "Come on," she muttered, tucking a strand of dark hair behind her ear. "Show me what I'm missing." The rejection letter from the International Physics Foundation, her third this year, lay crumpled in the trash bin beside her desk. Asterisk theories too speculative, insufficient experimental evidence, methodology unsound asterisk. Elena took a long sip of cold coffee and rolled her shoulders. 5 years of work, and the academic establishment still dismissed her theories as fringe science. If only she cooled. The air crackled. Her skin prickled with static electricity. The lights flickered once, twice, then extinguished completely. In the sudden darkness, a shimmering azure glow materialized in the center of her lab. It expanded outward, a perfect sphere of impossible light that hummed with energy. Papers scattered across the floor as if caught in an invisible wind. "What the hell?" Elena whispered, stumbling backward until her spine pressed against the wall. The sphere pulsed once, then rushed toward her with devastating speed. She didn't even have time to scream. Consciousness returned slowly. Elena's eyelids felt impossibly heavy as she forced them open. The ceiling above her wasn't the water-stained panels of her university lab. It was moving. Geometric patterns flowed across a pearlescent surface, shifting and reconfiguring in mesmerizing sequences. "Subject has regained consciousness," announced a voice like crystal chimes striking against one another. Elena bolted upright. The movement sent a wave of nausea through her body, but she fought it down as she took in her surroundings. The chamber was vast, circular, and unlike anything human architecture had ever produced. The walls curved organically, studded with pulsing crystalline structures that emitted soft blue light. And she wasn't alone. Dozens of beings occupied the space. Some were vaguely humanoid with too many limbs or eyes. Others defied categorization entirely. Masses of tentacles, geometric constructs of light, hovering clouds of particulate matter. Standing directly before her was a towering figure whose body appeared to be constructed of interlocking crystal formations. Light pulsed through its transparent structure in complex patterns. Where a face might have been, a rotating polyhedron of blue energy hovered, shifting between geometric forms. "Dr. Elena Rice of Earth," the creature chimed, its voice somehow emerging without any visible mouth. "I am Master Calculator Vix of the Arxiv Consensus. Your species designation is Terran. Classification: pre-contact, developmental stage. Atomic digital transition. Threat assessment: moderate to severe." Elena's scientific mind took control despite her fear. "You're not human." The crystalline being's polyhedron face shifted to a new configuration. "A most astute observation, Dr. Rice. We are the Arxiv, and we have brought you here because our universe is dying." Another being approached, this one a column of swirling gas contained within a hovering mechanical shell. It emitted a series of clicks and whistles. "My colleague wishes to emphasize the urgency," Vix translated. "We have precisely 27 planetary rotations before the dimensional rift consumes your solar system." Elena looked around at the other aliens, noticing their postures, slumped, withdrawn, fearful. "Why me?" she asked. The crystal being's internal lights pulsed in what might have been a sigh. "Because we have simulated 8.7 trillion scenarios using the most advanced computational methods in the galaxy," Vix replied. "All have failed. Now we turn to more primitive approaches." Elena stood at the observation deck, watching the dimensional rift through the massive viewing portal. It was beautiful in its terrifying way, a fractal tear in reality that shimmered with colors that shouldn't exist, expanding in pulses that seemed almost rhythmic. "Your species wasn't considered worthy of salvation. Until now," came a chiming voice behind her. Elena turned to find a smaller Arxiv, its crystalline form more delicate than Vix's imposing structure. "I am Research Designate Tau 9. It introduced itself. "I have been assigned to answer your preliminary questions before Council assessment." "Why wasn't Earth contacted before this crisis?" Elena asked. Tau 9's geometric face rotated to a pentagonal configuration. "Your species classification is dangerously unpredictable with extinction-level aggressive tendencies. The consensus determined Earth would remain quarantined until your civilization either matured beyond violence or self-terminated." "Charming," Elena muttered. "So we're good enough to help save you now, but not good enough for a friendly hello before the universe ends." "Precisely," Tau 9 responded, missing her sarcasm entirely. "Master Calculator Vix has granted you access to the perfect simulation room. The Council expects you to fail quickly, which will justify immediate termination of the human experimentation program. No pressure, then." The perfect simulation room was a blindingly white spherical chamber. 17 aliens of various forms were stationed around its circumference, each working within holographic interfaces that shimmered with complex equations and multidimensional models. In the center floated a perfect miniature of the rift, a swirling kaleidoscope of mathematical chaos. A towering insectoid creature chittered angrily when Elena entered. Its translator device converted the sounds to a condescending tone. "The primates have arrived." "How quaint." Elena ignored the comment, circling the simulation slowly. The other scientists barely acknowledged her, too engrossed in their increasingly desperate calculations. A gaseous entity manipulated quantum variables with appendages made of pure energy. A 6-limbed amphibian applied principles of 11-dimensional calculus through neural interfacing. A hive mind collective of small rodent-like creatures worked in perfect unison on what appeared to be temporal modulation algorithms. All brilliantly sophisticated, all failing. During a mandatory rest period, Elena sat cross-legged on the floor, watching the simulation's movement patterns. Something about it seemed strangely familiar. The way it expanded, contracted, and shifted reminded her of. She pulled out the simple datapad she'd been given and began plotting coordinates, tracking the rift's movement over time. The insectoid scientist loomed over her. "What primitive calculations are you attempting, human? Your species hasn't even mastered basic quantum tunneling." Elena didn't look up. "I'm not trying to solve your equations," she replied calmly. "I'm learning the rift's rules." "Rules?" The insectoid's mandibles clicked in derision. "This is a Class 7 dimensional anomaly, not one of your primitive Earth games." But Elena had stopped listening. The patterns she was mapping resembled cellular automata, like Conway's Game of Life, but vastly more complex. The rift wasn't expanding randomly. It was playing. When she looked up, she found Master Calculator Vix observing her from across the chamber, its crystalline head tilted in what might have been curiosity. "Interesting approach, Dr. Reyes," Vix chimed, geometric face shifting into a new configuration. "Different, inefficient, but interesting." For the first time since her abduction, Elena smiled. Different was exactly what they needed. Elena's quarters aboard the Arxiv vessel were sparse. A sleeping platform, hygiene station, and small workstation with access to limited data resources. But it was what she needed. Her official daily participation in the perfect simulation room had become perfunctory. She would observe, take notes, then retreat here. The other scientists viewed her withdrawal as admission of failure. Elena knew it was anything but. "The rift isn't a disaster. It's following instructions," she whispered to herself, manipulating the light particles the Arxiv had reluctantly granted her access to. They floated in the air before her, forming the three-dimensional matrix of the rift's activity over the past 200 cycles. Colors shifted as she added timestamps. Red for expansion events, blue for stable periods, yellow for anomalous contractions. A knock at her door. 3 precise taps. "Enter," Elena called, not looking away from her model. Tau 9 slipped inside, its crystalline form catching the colored light in prismatic refractions. Your absence from collaborative sessions has been noted, Dr. Reyes, the young Orcs stated. The Council questions your commitment to this endeavor. Elena motioned toward her floating model. What does this look like to you? Tau 9's geometric face rotated slowly as it studied the pattern. A complex data visualization. Inefficient. Our quantum processor's cold. Not how it's made. Elena interrupted. What it resembles. The Orcs moved closer, lights pulsing inside its crystalline body as it processed. It appears similar to a neural pathway, or perhaps a complex adaptive system, Elena finished, like biological immune responses or weather patterns on Earth. She manipulated the display, accelerating the time sequence. The colors flowed in distinct patterns, reacting, adapting, anticipating. The rift isn't a mindless phenomenon, Elena explained. It's responding to stimuli. Specifically, it's responding to your attempts to close it. Tau 9's internal lights flickered rapidly, the Orcs equivalent of surprise. You suggest the anomaly is sentient. Not sentient. Responsive. Like Earth's immune system fighting a pathogen. It doesn't think. It reacts according to fundamental programming. Elena expanded a particular section of the model. Look here. Every time your scientists apply a specific type of dimensional compression, the rift counters with this expansion pattern. It's not random. It's defensive. Tau 9 was silent for a long moment, its processors humming audibly. This contradicts our fundamental assumptions, it finally said. The Council would reject such primitive pattern matching without quantifiable metrics. Then we don't tell them yet. Elena leaned forward, eyes intense. Help me run simulations, not as an attempt to solve the rift, but as an opponent trying to understand its gameplay strategy. Gameplay. Tau 9's face shifted to a confused configuration. This is not a game, Dr. Reyes. Everything's a game if you understand the rules, Elena replied, smiling slightly. Chess, poker, even war. They're all just systems with parameters and objectives. Your people have been treating the rift as a physics problem. I'm treating it as an opponent. Tau 9 hesitated, then moved to the workstation. The Council will deactivate my consciousness stream if they discover unauthorized simulations. Then we better not get caught, Elena said, already adjusting her model parameters. Besides, what's the worse option? Breaking protocol or watching the universe end? The Orcs' geometric face rotated to a configuration Elena hadn't seen before. I believe, Tau 9 said quietly, that humans call this thinking outside the box. 3 days of secret simulations had left Elena exhausted but exhilarated. Sleep was a luxury she couldn't afford, not with galactic extinction looming. Tau 9 required no rest, its crystalline form drawing energy directly from the ship's ambient field. Their makeshift lab space, a storage compartment Tau 9 had repurposed, was illuminated by swirling holographic displays showing hundreds of rift response patterns. There, Elena said, highlighting a particularly dramatic expansion sequence. Run the correlation algorithm again, but filter for technological complexity factors. Tau 9's limbs moved through the interface with fluid precision. Processing. The display reconfigured, sorting data points by color and intensity. A perfect ascending line formed. What if everything we're doing is exactly what it wants us to do? Elena whispered, staring at the irrefutable pattern. Tau 9's geometric face shifted to its analytical configuration. Clarify. Look at the expansion rates. Elena traced the ascending line. The more sophisticated the countermeasure attempted, the faster and more aggressively the rift responds. The Melneri's 11-dimensional calculus approach triggered the largest expansion event on record, while the Voon's quantum variable manipulation, a less advanced technique, produced only a minor response. Tau 9 continued, internal lights pulsing with increasing speed. This suggests the rift responds proportionally to technological sophistication, Elena finished. It's like an immune system. The more advanced the attack, the stronger the defense. Elena paced the small compartment, mind racing. The Orcs' ultra-advanced quantum solutions aren't failing. They're feeding the problem. The realization hit her with stunning clarity. Your simulations always assumed increasingly complex solutions would work for a complex problem. What if that's backward? What if we need deliberate simplification? Tau 9 processed this for several moments. Counterintuitive. The Council will reject such reasoning without empirical evidence. Then we'll give them evidence. Elena pulled up the control interface for their private simulation strand. I want to test something radical. Can you isolate a portion of the Rift simulation for a controlled experiment? Affirmative, but unauthorized manipulation. Will get us both in trouble, I know. Elena's eyes met Tau 9's geometric face. But we're running out of time. The Orcs' Council chamber was imposing. A vast crystalline dome where 13 master calculators hovered in formation around a central podium. Elena stood there now, heart pounding as she faced their impassive geometric faces. Dr. Elena Rice requests audience to present experimental findings. Vix announced, its chiming voice echoing. The chief calculator, a massive crystalline entity with a dodecahedron face, responded with clear skepticism. The human experiment was deemed unsuccessful. Resources are better allocated elsewhere. With respect, Elena said firmly, I believe I've identified why all previous attempts to close the rift have failed. Murmurs of crystalline chimes filled the chamber. The rift isn't a passive phenomenon. It's reactive, she continued. Specifically, it reacts defensively against sophisticated interventions. Your advanced techniques aren't failing. They're triggering the rift's expansion. The chief calculator's face rotated to a configuration Elena recognized as dismissal. Preposterous. The rift is a dimensional anomaly, not a sentient entity. Not sentient, adaptive, Elena clarified. And I can prove it. She nodded to Tau 9, who activated the holographic display. The simulation showed a controlled section of the rift subjected to various interventions. Complex quantum manipulations caused violent expansions, while simple, almost crude adjustments produced no defensive response. My solution is counterintuitive, Elena explained as the council watched in silence. Deliberate simplification. Technological regression. Use methods so primitive they don't trigger the rift's defensive mechanisms. The chamber erupted in chiming discord. You propose we abandon advanced science in favor of primitive methods, the chief calculator demanded incredulously. I propose 8 hours to test my theory in a controlled environment, Elena replied calmly. What's that against the extinction of all known civilization? The council chamber was utterly silent as the final results of Elena's test appeared in the central hologram. The isolated section of the rift had stabilized, not completely closed, but no longer expanding. It was the first positive result in the entire crisis. Master Calculator Vix's geometric face shifted through several configurations rapidly. Unexpected. Unprecedented. Successful. The chief calculator seemed less impressed. A limited test in a controlled environment proves little. Scaling this approach to the actual rift would require more humans, Elena interrupted. I need more humans, not more scientists. Different kinds of human minds. The crystalline discord that followed was almost deafening. Council members chimed arguments at each other in frequencies that made Elena wince. Absolutely not. The chief calculator's voice cut through the chaos. Your presence alone was a desperate measure. To bring more primitive beings aboard our vessel would give us a fighting chance, Elena finished. My approach works, but it requires simultaneous implementation across multiple dimensional coordinates. I can't manage that alone. Vix moved forward. The human speaks logically. Current projections show 14 star systems now consumed. The Orcs colony world Crystallis Prime will be reached in 37 hours. The mention of their colony world silenced further objections. How many humans? The chief calculator asked reluctantly. 5, Elena replied without hesitation. And I need specific humans, not random specimens. Elena watched nervously as 5 shimmering blue spheres materialized in the quarantine chamber. One by one, they deposited their disoriented human occupants before dissipating. First came Maya Chen, slender with purple-streaked hair and lightning-quick reflexes. The professional speedrunner who'd broken 3 unbreakable games last year blinked rapidly at her surroundings. Next appeared Jamal Washington, tall with an easy grace even in his confusion. The jazz improvisationalist whose music had defied computational analysis looked around with wide eyes. Sarah Patel materialized third, a kindergarten teacher whose classroom management techniques had baffled educational AI systems. She immediately began assessing exit points with practiced calm. Carlos Mendez arrived fourth, stocky and strong-handed, the master plumber whose intuitive understanding of complex flow systems had saved an entire city district during the Great Flood of 2031 muttered Spanish expletives under his breath. Finally, Wei Zhang appeared, serene despite the circumstances. The chess grandmaster who had defeated the world's most advanced AI using moves no program predicted simply straightened his glasses and waited. 5 humans, 5 wildly different skill sets, 5 expressions ranging from terror to fascination. Welcome aboard the Orcs vessel * infinite calculation *, Elena said, stepping forward. I'm Dr. Elena Reyes. I was abducted 3 weeks ago, just like you. Are those aliens? Maya asked, pointing at Tau 9 and Vix, who stood behind a force field. Yes, they need our help to save the universe. Carlos barked a laugh. You've got the wrong guy, lady. I fix pipes, not universes. Actually, Elena replied with a small smile, your plumbing expertise is exactly what we need. She activated a holographic display showing the dimensional rift. This is consuming entire star systems, including Earth soon. The Orcs' advanced technology can't stop it because they're too perfect, too logical. They need human unpredictability. Wei studied the display with focused attention. This is not a conventional problem. Exactly, Elena agreed. It's not a scientific problem to solve. It's a game to be broken. That's why you're all here. Maya stepped forward, eyes already scanning the simulation for boundaries and exploits. What are the rules we can push against? For the first time in weeks, Elena felt genuine hope. The perfect simulation room had been transformed. Where once alien scientists had worked in solemn isolation, 5 humans now moved with chaotic energy that clearly unsettled the watching arcs of observers. The simulation isn't reality. It's the Orcs' understanding of reality. And that's its weakness, Elena explained to her team as they studied the massive rift projection. Maya circled the simulation like a predator, eyes scanning for exploitable boundaries. It's too clean, she muttered. Real systems have jank, imperfections you can leverage. Jamal nodded, his fingers moving as if playing invisible keys. It's like they programmed a perfect C major scale, when reality is all about the blue notes. The senior Orcs scientist monitoring them, a crystalline entity named Logic Prime, chimed with disapproval. The simulation is precise to 17 quantum decimal places. Its accuracy is beyond question. That's exactly the problem, Carlos said, studying the energy flow patterns. Real universal systems are messy. I've never seen a perfect pipe. There's always some buildup, some irregularity. This simulation is too perfect. Sarah approached the central projection, her teacher's eye assessing the patterns. It reminds me of my classroom on a Monday morning. All that chaotic energy needs channeling, not suppression. Wei remained silent, his gaze calculating as he studied the rift's reactions to different stimuli. What do you propose? Logic Prime asked skeptically. Elena exchanged glances with her team. We need to introduce controlled imperfections. Deliberately create the chaos that exists in real systems, but is missing from your models. Preposterous. Logic Prime's geometric face spun in obvious agitation. Deliberately introducing errors would only compound our failure. Not errors. Reality, Maya corrected. Every game I've broken had perfect rules that didn't account for edge cases. That's where the exploits live. The team divided into specialized groups. Sarah began coordinating timing sequences based on attention span patterns she'd observed in children. Jamal created what he called dimensional harmonies, interventions that resonated with but didn't directly confront the rift's expansions. Maya worked at the simulation boundaries, testing limits and finding exploitable edges in the code itself. Carlos reconfigured energy flows using principles that seemed intuitive rather than mathematical. Wei developed position sacrifices, temporarily yielding space to ultimately contain the breach. To the watching Orcs, it appeared completely chaotic. No logical order, no mathematical precision, no coordinated approach. Just 5 humans working on instinct in ways that defied computational analysis. Yet improbably, impossibly, sectors of the rift began to stabilize. I don't understand. Logic Prime chimed, geometric face shifting rapidly between confusion configurations. Your methods contradict all established dimensional principles. Wei finally spoke, his voice calm and measured. In chess, the obvious move is rarely the best move. Sometimes you must sacrifice material advantage to gain positional strength. This isn't chess. Logic Prime objected. Jamal grinned. You're right. It's jazz. The universe isn't playing by fixed rules. It's improvising. As another section of the rift stabilized, Alina watched the Orcs scientists' reactions. Their geometric faces rotated through configurations she'd never seen before, the closest thing to bewilderment their species could express. Your perfection is the problem, Alina explained gently. You've been playing chess against the universe using perfect logic, but the universe isn't playing chess, it's playing jazz. The Orcs council chamber vibrated with crystalline tension. Holographic displays showed the simulation results, an 86% reduction in rift expansion, far beyond anything previously achieved. Yet the council remained hesitant. Your methods achieved results in simulation only, the chief calculator chimed dismissively. Implementing such chaos in actual spacetime violates every principle of Orcs intervention philosophy. Alina faced the towering crystalline beings without flinching. With respect, your philosophy is exactly what's failed so far. The human approach is inelegant. Another council member objected. It lacks mathematical rigor, relies on unpredictable variables, and contains deliberate imperfections. Yes, Wei agreed calmly. That is precisely why it works. The debate might have continued for days, if a priority alert hadn't interrupted. 3 holographic displays materialized, showing a cascade of light as entire star systems vanished. Among them, Crystallis Prime, the oldest Orcs colony world. The chamber fell silent. Prepare the fleet, the chief calculator ordered finally. We will implement the human solution. The deployment bay was massive, a cathedral-like space where hundreds of sleek crystalline vessels prepared for departure. Each ship contained rift manipulator technology, now reprogrammed with the human team's specifications. The real universe already contains the natural imperfections your solution requires, Alina explained to the fleet commander. Your perfect models just never incorporated them. We stepped forward with a holographic display. Here is our implementation strategy. Note the seemingly random positioning. This is deliberate. These apparent weaknesses are actually strengths. The commander's geometric face rotated in what Alina now recognized as skepticism. You expect our fleet to deliberately introduce errors into our rift manipulation fields. Not errors, Carlos corrected, pointing to specific coordinates. Pressure release points, like a complex plumbing system. Sometimes you need to let off steam to prevent catastrophic failure. The commander seemed unconvinced, but orders were orders. Alina and her team watched from the command center as the fleet took position around the rift's perimeter. Hundreds of ships, arranged in a pattern that would have appeared chaotic to mathematical analysis, but contained a strange harmony visible only to human intuition. "First phase initiating," reported the fleet coordinator. Maya stood beside Alina, calling timing adjustments like a conductor. "Tell Squadron 7 to reduce field strength by 8%. Now Squadron 3 needs to pulse their generators in sync with the rift's contraction cycle." The massive view screen showed the rift's reaction. Initial expansion followed by unexpected stabilization. "Second phase ready," the coordinator announced. Sarah's classroom management experience proved surprisingly relevant. The rift is like a classroom of hyperactive children. Give it something to focus on in Section 4 while making the real adjustments in Section 2. The implementation continued with Jamal providing harmonic adjustments and Wei suggesting positional reconfiguration. The Orcs followed instructions with perfect precision, even as they failed to understand the underlying principles. Then came a critical moment, an unexpected surge in dimensional energy near the fleet's central position. "Pull back Squadron 12 immediately," ordered the commander. Carlos stepped forward, eyes fixed on the energy flow patterns. "No, move them closer." "That contradicts all safety protocols," the commander objected. "Trust human intuition just this once," Alina urged. "Carlos understands flow systems better than anyone." The commander hesitated, then relayed the order. Squadron 12 moved toward the energy surge, and somehow, impossibly, channeled it into a cascading stabilization effect across the entire rift system. "It's working," Tau 9 chimed softly beside Alina. "The counterintuitive approach is succeeding where all logical solutions failed." As the rift began to visibly contract, Alina watched the arcs of officers. Their geometric faces shifted through configurations of disbelief as perfection failed and imperfection triumphed. The observation deck of the Orcs vessel offered a panoramic view of what had once been the most devastating dimensional rift in known galactic history. Now it was simply gone, leaving behind a shimmering region of space-time with peculiar new properties that excited the Orcs scientists. "We never simulated imagination, because we cannot quantify it," Master Calculator Vix admitted, its crystalline form reflecting the starlight. "This is a humbling realization for a species that has prided itself on computational superiority for 9 million years." The Interspecies Summit had been convened in the Great Assembly Chamber. Representatives from 17 advanced civilizations gathered to discuss both the crisis and its unprecedented resolution. At the center of attention, 6 humans from a previously quarantined world. The chief calculator's massive form hovered before the assembly, geometric face rotating through formal configurations. After extensive analysis, the Orcs consensus has reached a conclusion that will alter our understanding of cosmic order, the chief calculator announced. Despite our computational superiority, the Orcs had reached an evolutionary dead end. Our logical perfection became our greatest weakness. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. The species classified as dangerously unpredictable provided the solution precisely because of traits we considered primitive, the qualities we deemed undesirable. Chaos, intuition, improvisation proved essential for understanding a universe that defies perfect comprehension. Alina and her team exchanged glances. After weeks of dismissal and condescension, vindication was sweet. "Therefore, this council proposes an unprecedented measure," the chief calculator continued. "Earth will be immediately reclassified as a protected world with full galactic recognition. Furthermore, humans will serve as special consultants on problems resistant to conventional approaches." The proposal was met with both enthusiasm and skepticism from the assembled species, but the evidence was irrefutable. The rift was closed. The human method had worked. As the team prepared to return to Earth, with knowledge that would transform human civilization overnight, Alina found a quiet moment to gaze at the stars. Tau 9 joined her, its crystalline form now adorned with a new pattern signifying its promotion to Research Master. "Your species will join the galactic community now," Tau 9 chimed. Though I suspect you will challenge our assumptions at every turn. Alina smiled. That's what humans do best. The Orcs have created a new classification specifically for humanity, Tau 9 added. Chaos thinkers, species whose unpredictability makes them uniquely valuable. Alina considered this. What saved us wasn't superior intelligence or advanced technology. It was our willingness to embrace imperfection, to see patterns in chaos and possibilities in failure. Our billions of years of evolution toward perfect logic inadvertently eliminated the creative chaos necessary for true problem-solving. Tau 9 acknowledged. We became so focused on perfection that we engineered out the very qualities needed to understand a universe that is fundamentally imperfect. Below them, Carlos was explaining Earth plumbing principles to fascinated arcs of engineers. Sarah was demonstrating classroom management techniques to xenoanthropologists. Jamal improvised jazz while crystalline beings attempted to quantify its patterns. Maya and Wei collaborated on a new approach to dimensional stability using game theory. Humans and aliens working together, chaotic, imperfect, and somehow stronger for it. I wonder what other problems might benefit from a little human chaos, Alina mused. Tau 9's geometric face shifted to a configuration Alina now recognized as amusement. The universe is vast, it chimed, and I suspect it has been waiting for someone to break the rules.